Hi, I'm Connie Sokol, a national speaker, best-selling author, program founder, and mother of 7, and loving it. I'm reaching and teaching 1 million listeners to live a purposeful, organized, and joyful life. You can too, so let's go.
Welcome back to Money Mindset Mentors. We are so excited today to be talking to you about our follow-up from the last time that we spoke with Rachel and Connie. And we are going to be talking about helping our kiddos as they are becoming financially savvy themselves, and what is our role in that, and how do we take part in helping them. So let's go ahead and Rachel, take it away.
Hi, thanks. Last week was so much fun, and we had a lot of questions and comments, and so we thought we'd just do a follow-up. So Amanda, you were telling me that your kiddos are kind of in that spot where they're kind of jumping, and so why don't you tell me your thoughts on where they're at and how we can kind of talk through a few things.
Oh, yes. Okay. So my boys just came home from their mission. So 20 years old, came home. They've got this old 98 pickup truck that that is the truck that they choose that they want. And they come home, they're home for 7 days, and they walk into me, and Braxton says, "Mom, we got jobs in Utah. We start on Monday. This is on a Thursday. We start on Monday. And so we have to go." And I said, "Well, wait, your truck's not even running. Like, it's not ready for you to go. How are you going to go?" And he says, "Nope, we got it. We're going to work on it." So they work around the clock on this truck. I know. And the whole time I'm going, "Where are you going to stay? Where?" And they're like, "Mom, we know what we're doing. We've been on our missions. We're home. We've got this. We know what we're doing." And I'm like, "No, you don't. You don't even have a plan, like whatever." So Friday morning I get up and I'm like, "Okay, so are you guys, what's your plan?" And they're like, "Oh, we're going to go to Utah." And the hood is up on the truck. And I said, "Well, how's the truck working for you?" And they said, "Oh, we'll worry about that later. Like, it will get us there. We've got it." So I had family in town. They followed family back, which was the only reason I allowed this to happen. Just so you know, I'm not a totally loser mom, but they had to learn this lesson on their own. So they take off. They call me and they're like, "Hey, we're on the go." And I'm like, "Okay." They're going. Pretty soon they call me and they're like, "Okay, we're 3 hours away and we can only go 40 miles an hour up hills." Okay. Then they call me when they hit St. George and they're like, "We just ran out of gas because the gas gauge no longer works." Like, seriously, this was their start. They were not ready. And the whole time, as you were talking and you with Connie last week, something that has just really stuck with me is you said, pay attention to their passions and their interests. Had I done that, I would have known that those 2 boys were going to come home off their mission, pack the truck, and go to Utah. They have talked about that for years. And never did we sit down and say, "Okay, here's what it's going to take for you to go back to Utah."
That is a fantastic story. I mean, think about everything that they just learned, and here they are calling their mom as they're going or whatever. But like, what were you doing? I'm just curious, like when they would call you and be like, "Okay, now we ran out of gas." Like, what were you just laughing, or were you like dying, or what?
All of the above. I was seriously like, "What?" And at one point they even called and said, "Okay, we called a friend and they're going to come tow the truck." So then they had a tow truck, they had the tow experience, and they go down. And the whole time, like, luckily they were traveling with family. I think if family wouldn't have been with them, it would have been different. But my mother-in-law and father-in-law were in a car behind them.
Okay.
So they were traveling, but it just kept going. Then I would say to them, "Where are you staying?" "Oh, we'll find a friend." I'm like, "Oh my word."
Yeah. Well, I guess that's one way to learn.
Better.
That is no. That is hilarious. I mean, what I take from that is they were raised very well because they're super independent, right? So they have the confidence to get through whatever situation they're in, which I think like that's huge. We want our kids to be so confident that when they get in a situation like that, they can figure it out. And while we want them to call us, they're also figuring things out on the other end. And they're like, "Hey, this is what we're doing. This is what situation we're in, but we're going to be okay."
Yeah.
Like, I think that's huge.
Yes. They called me and they said, "Okay, Mom, we've learned a few things. We've learned that 1, we were not ready to leave. We were not ready. The truck needed some work. We needed to get some situations lined up before we were ready." And then the other one, Braden said, "But Mom, we had to learn it this way. We had to." So now, Rachel, we're in the situation with them where they're staying with my dad, which is great. My dad really needs their help. It's great. They stay with my dad. They help my dad, but they're also in a place where we need a spot for our stuff because they're kind of all their stuff, right? And they trust me, they're boys. They come with a lot of stuff. They just have all their stuff. Yeah. So now they keep saying to me, Mom, we want to get into a house. Like, what if we do this or what if we do that? And I'm trying to figure out my role in that. Because
like, what do you mean get into a house? Like, are they wanting to rent? Are they wanting to figure out a way to buy?
They're wanting to buy.
Yeah, that's exciting. Like, that's super exciting.
Super exciting. But where is my role in that? Because I know they don't have the down payment.
Mm-hmm.
How much do I fund? How much do I not fund?
Sure.
Do I use this as my investment property? And, all these thoughts. So I would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have several thoughts. So I don't know if you remember, but my boys have a property in Provo. Like, where are they in Utah?
They're in Price.
In Price. Okay. So, so that's like, yeah, right where you were looking and everything. Okay. So our boys have a place in Provo and we partnered with them on that. So, and we set it up because kind of like your boys, like, okay, right now they don't have that, down payment, whether it's 20% or even just 3.5%, like coming home from their missions and, they've got money to live and things like that, but not necessarily $15,000, $20,000 or whatever it is for that down payment. So we set ours up where we would be that, the bank basically for them. So that was our half of things. And their half of things, like they're doing all the maintenance. They do all the finding of roommates. They make sure everything is paid. They make sure the utilities are set up. They make sure if problems happen in the house, they're responsible to get those things fixed. And they did have some skin in the game with, when I say that we were the bank, they did have some skin in the game and had to put some money up. Just that's how we did it. And so I think once again, that's why I love talking about this stuff, is because there's so many different ways that you could put this together. So if you want to use it, if you and your husband want to use this money as your investment property and set it up something similar to ours, by all means, like that would be so fun, right? Or if you want to, if something else makes more sense to you guys, or just you feel better about a different way, you could make it work however you want it to. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So then that would go into like, do they pay rent? Do they not pay rent? And just looking at, maybe they could be the property managers and looking at that type of an agreement with them.
Yeah.
Would you say, so my boys are very hands-on, very, very, they can just do anything that they put their minds to. It's incredible, the things that they can do. Would you say a fixer-upper and have them like, that's their skin in the game? Like, we get this fixer-upper, you guys are doing all of the fixing up.
Absolutely. That's something else that this Provo house definitely has going for it, is it was a total fixer-upper. And so actually last year when we bought it, the whole family kind of jumped in at first and said, okay, we've got like a day and a half to help you. And so we went in and got our hands all dirty, because that's something I believe in very strongly, is if I'm managing someone or teaching someone or whatever, I jump in the deep, dirty water with them. Like anything I would ask someone to do, I do, so that they know like, hey, I'm just not throwing these crazy things out there. Like, I'm going to be with you to help you. So we did that for a day and a half. We went down to Provo and we stripped wallpaper and we knocked down a couple of walls and things like that. And then they finished it. So absolutely, if your boys are handy and like hands-on, absolutely, I think that's amazing.
Yeah. And the thing I love about that is it also allows them to gain skills and experience, right?
Absolutely.
So one of the houses they sent to me, I'm not even kidding you. Like, when I started looking at it, I went, it's not even a house. Like, it's stripped, like right down, which is a great place for redesign. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of nice. We can really look at what we want to do and how we want to make that work. So I was
so
thinking,
are you, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was, okay, you're up.
Okay. So when you say it's stripped down, do you mean like it's down to the studs?
In some places, yes, it is down to the studs in some spots. Some rooms, no. Some rooms, it's, you can see I don't know if it looks like sheetrock to me. I have not walked in it, so I don't know.
Okay, don't know if it's plaster. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't know if it's sheetrock or if it's plaster. And then in some parts, it's down to studs.
Okay. So yeah, you're right. That totally allows you to reconfigure how you would be able to make the most of the square footage in there, and also to bring in the most investment money. So that's, I mean, I love properties like that, as long as you're confident that they, that they could do it, or you have someone that can jump in if they do need some guidance on that.
Yeah. So my next question would be, when you're looking at cost of repairs on that, like ballpark figure, if the house is a certain amount, do you double it? Do you triple it? Like, what am I looking at that?
Well, so what we do is, first of all, if this is your first kind of go around in price, which it sounds like it is, and so you're kind of not very familiar with what the costs might be, I think that it's smart to kind of first use Google, try to figure out some costs that way. And then when you kind of have an idea of things, start reaching out to a couple of handy guys, handymen, handy women, whatever, to see if they can actually, and if they are willing to come and walk you through and say, okay, this bathroom is going to cost you $15,000 to redo, your kitchen, etc. A lot of people won't do that. Like, handy people won't do that unless you have a relationship with them. So like, if your in-laws know anyone, you could be like, hey, we're willing to pay you X amount to come in and kind of help us with this. But that way, what the numbers are. And what I love about that too, is that you can use those numbers for additional properties. So if you can pay somebody for their expertise on a property, then you keep those numbers handy. So like, okay, so if I'm tiling this size of a bathroom, then we're looking at X amount of money, depending on how much the tile is, but labor is kind of consistent in this area. Does that make sense?
Yes. And it's so funny that you say that, because I didn't even think, like, I have another son and he's in business construction. So he does just stuff. So he could tell me, he would be a wealth of knowledge as well.
Absolutely. And then too, one thing, as you're looking at these properties, a lot of times I think it's very easy for us to do two things. One is to be like, oh my gosh, I have the perfect idea of everything I'm going to do, and I'm going to make it so modern, and I'm going to make it so cute, and, kind of go overboard in your materials, and cost just goes out the roof, because you're not taking into consideration, like, this is an investment property, right? So that's number one. And number two is going the absolute other direction. So instead of saying like, oh, we want to have materials that are solid, you're like, oh, I'm just going to get the cheap everything because it's a rental property. So what we like to do, and I like to do specifically, is put tile a lot of places, everywhere I can, hard surfaces, because if you put in, like, for instance, flooring, like carpet, well, carpet gets nasty really quickly. And so, yeah, up front, it's a lot cheaper for the install and everything, but really you're going to be replacing that a lot more often than if you just get a decent tile that is generic enough to last for years and years and years. You've got those hard surfaces. People love to have hard surfaces when you're renting too, because you don't have all the germs and the pet dander, whatever the case may be. So as you're looking at costs, making sure your mind is, okay, this is an investment property, and we want to treat it as such. One other thought, kind of going along with like too cheapy stuff, you don't want your boys to have to repair the house every 2 seconds. So if you put in a kitchen faucet that's like the cheapest on the shelf, that's probably going to break. There's probably going to be plastic in there that's very cheap. So why not just bump it up a little bit so you have something that will last a decent amount of time?
Yes, I am loving all of this. And my mind is just going wild, because I also have a daughter who, her passion and her interest is interior design.
Yeah.
And I am just like, oh my gosh, this really could be a family thing where
Yes.
it's like, let's partner and let's do this. And I'm so excited. This could be amazing.
I love that. I love having my kids help me. They learn so much, and like your relationship just grows in ways that you never even imagined. Like, it's amazing.
Yes. And I know so many people would say to me, oh no, they got to do it on their own. Like they're out now, they chose that path, they've got to do it on their own. But I am like you, I don't want them to do it the hard way. Like I want them to learn those lessons, and I want them to grow to appreciate money, and I want them to know how to successfully invest. I want them to have all of those skills.
Mhm.
And but I don't feel like you need to get there by scrimping.
I don't think so either. Yeah. And it could be, I mean, that's a very controversial topic, and I recognize that, and to each his own. But yeah, it's worked for us, and so far so good with our older kids. Like I feel like they appreciate what they have, and so it's been good. So yeah.
Yes. And I'm excited. When they sent me this property, the other thing that I love is this whole time a lot of people have said, if you're going to invest, you got to do it now. Like interest rates are going to jump. They're going to jump again. You got to do it now. And it's almost been like this urgency.
Mhm.
And it's been amazing because because I understand the way it works, I've been able to just step back and say, nope, I'm going to go with the peaceful buy. Like I'm going to go with what's peaceful. I'm not going to feel rushed into this.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a good deal out there somewhere. It's just, I'm going to do my homework, and I'm going to do it at the time that is right for me. And when they sent me this property, I was like, you know what? The price point feels good. There's going to be a lot of work into it, but they could do a lot of that work. I just was like, okay, this is feeling a lot better. So I love that. I love being able to, it's peaceful. Like we don't have to be rushed into this urgency. We can take that peaceful pause,
Right. Well, and that's a good point that you make, that good deals are going to be out there. Like they're going to be harder to find, right? But like, as long as you can make the numbers work, like, yeah, I get that we don't want to pay more interest, but really if the numbers are working for us, it's okay. And like you said, I would much rather wait a little bit and get the best deal that I can possibly than to rush into something where my foundation is totally crumbling, or who knows, the neighborhood's going to be condemned, or I don't even know, but because you're rushing. So I think that's very smart.
Yes. And the other thing I told my boys too, before we look at doing this at all, was I said, where's your budget? Like you guys have to show me that we can make this work together, because it is going to be a partnership, and get their numbers right too, because I am so far away. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yes. I am so excited about it. I'm excited. And I'm excited that you shared so much of what you shared last time, because that paying attention to their interests and their passion, that will always forever stay with me. Because had I started doing that long ago, I would have known, oh my word, my daughter really is into interior design. I would have noticed that a lot sooner, and I would have been able to play to that a little more, and guide that a little bit more. And the same with my boys. Like I said, I would have known that they were coming home just to pack up their room, and they were gone, and I could have had a truck ready for them. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Please. Although I'm like selfishly thinking, because I've got a son on a mission right now too. And I'm selfishly thinking, oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't just come home and 7 days later, like he's like, I'm leaving. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So
yes,
that's so fun.
All right. Well, anything else? Any other tips, thoughts that you have?
I'm really impressed with your boys. I think that's, as we're raising our kids, I think that's something I didn't understand with my older kids necessarily, was like, okay, we're raising them. We want them to be strong, independent people, so that when they do go out, when they do either make mistakes or come upon like situations where something goes wrong, that they have the courage, and they also have that solid foundation to know, like, hey, I'm smart enough. I can think through this. I'm going to be okay. And I'm not going to die in this situation, So I think as we're raising our kids, just remembering like, I don't want my kids to leave the house. Right. But at the same time, that's what we want. And that's what we need. We need them to be strong and independent. And so teaching these things at a young age is going to help them be ready for when the time comes for them to leave.
Yes, I love that. I love the idea of making them as independent as they can possibly be. That's what we strive for. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you guys next week. Have
Sounds
a
good.
good day.
Bye, Amanda.
See ya.